You know what? Now that I think of it, I had a perfect meme for when this moment was going to happen. Here it is! Hey there folks, and welcome to this video, and here I'm talking about the We Racers 1 initiative by Formula 1. If you don't remember it, there's probably a good reason. Whilst it was announced last year, it was announced during June, during Pride Month, we used a rainbow, but it wasn't for the queer community, it was to talk about frontline workers, because, yeah, they've actually decided to flesh it out a bit this year. They've decided to no longer incorporate the rainbow as part of the imagery. I wonder why. Is it anything to do with Grand Prix in places like Saudi Arabia as well as upholding places like Russia on the calendar? I don't know. But it's also unveiled some kinds of policies which some of them feel a bit vague, but some of them do actually have some kind of tangible connection to the real world. So they outlined as part of this new initiative 3 different kind of key tenets. You had diversity and inclusion, you have sustainability, and you have community. As part of diversity and inclusion, they talk about a new intern program, funding engineering scholarships, supporting female participation, and growing STEM engagement. In terms of sustainability, they talk about a path to sustainably fueled hybrid engines, and they put a caveat on saying a real-world crossover. They talk about new freight methods, reducing the use of single-use plastics, and also a net zero carbon commitment by 2030. And under community, they talk about long-term projects with global promoters and creating positive, lasting change in local communities. Out of all of these, I see one that isn't as vague as the others, and that's the reducing of single-use plastics. But hey, I mean, we're talking about that as if it's something kind of radical. The Conservative government here in the UK have brought in a policy to do with that, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that that's something extremely radical as a change and something that F1 should be applauded for doing, because that's kind of a standard now, reducing single-use plastics. But again, there's very little that supports this. And I want to talk about this. I'm not coming from a place that you'd expect me to. A lot of people who are trying to do these, little one-ups on F1 are trying to do it as kind of, oh, F1 is doing bad because it's pandering to some kind of leftist, Marxist, communist global elite or something. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, F1 is talking the talk, but not walking the walk. F1 wants to say that it's doing these good things. It wants to say that it's doing these better things to make the world a better place. But there isn't actually any kind of track record for them doing that. They're keeping the pre-race moment of whatever, and annoyingly they're doing it as a proper moment of whatever this time. So what we saw last season with Formula E was they did a moment of silence to talk about everything around the world. And you had, only a couple of drivers kneeling. You had the Mercedes guys, and you had Jean-Eric Verne. Those are the only ones I can remember off the top of my head. And F1, at least with its We Racers 1 message last season, did shy away from it being about anti-racism thing. Even though they then allowed one of the drivers to sell a mask with an iron cross on it as part of a collaboration with somebody with alleged links to the far right. And, they told Lewis Hamilton off wearing a shirt saying "Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor." I don't know. They're now doing this moment of everything, and it was something that really did do well. It doesn't make much sense. It shows that they're we're vaguely aware that there's some kind of issue, but we don't want to talk about it. If they actually are committed to doing these kinds of changes, they need to do something concrete, and they need to have an actual policy. I did a video back in June, which was my problem with We Racers 1, and it was, again, because they didn't really say anything, apart from, I think at the time they'd said, oh, Chase Carey has committed a sum of 7 digits that we don't really know the exact number of, and we still don't, to the project. For all we know, that's how much they funded a marketing team to say that F1 was going to do good things, whilst actually not committing it to any kind of tangible things that it could do. I mean, what they could do here, for example, is they could say, oh, for the diversity inclusion, they could get one STEM placement at a vague institution that looks like it's a university for a woman in engineering, and then they go into an internship in F1. Do you know how much that would cost for them to kind of fund that? Probably about 30 grand, because it doesn't say there has to be a paid internship. In terms of sustainability, they could be looking at, well, they are actually doing something here, but that's more because they were already doing something, because they kind of have to do something, because otherwise people are going to start dropping out of F1. It's how they have to keep the engine manufacturers in. It's how they have to keep teams interested and new engine manufacturers potentially interested. The new freight methods. Oh, we put a different kind of netting on. That could be that met. And I know I'm sounding cynical with this, but I want to explain why I'm sounding cynical with this. Because we've seen this kind of thing before by Formula 1. We Racers 1 last year did absolutely nothing. And do you know how we know that? Nikita Mazepin is still racing. F1 and the FIA said they supported Haas, who did something behind closed doors and didn't even tell us the outcome of it. Which, yeah, I don't even know. And at the same time, they awarded a Grand Prix to Saudi Arabia. And this is in addition to bringing Turkey back onto the calendar and keeping Russia on the calendar, despite new decisions by the FAA saying that you can't give out new contracts to Russian racers. And now the key thing with F1 was they're like, oh, it says new. We still have a current contract with Russia. But basically, until the end of next year, I don't think that there could be any new contracts set. So they're still going to race there. Because, you know, we Racers 1 and all that. We have a contract to do it, and yeah. They're scared of saying no to that money now. Like, if F1 really wanted to do change, it would actually do change. It would actually say, hi, we're funding 1,000 scholarships, and we're going to be funding them for people from lower economic backgrounds. And we're funding them in a variety of different countries around the world that are also underrepresented. Because what they would be saying is, oh, we're helping to fund the paths to F1 into engineering generally that are often not thought about because they're from underrepresented groups. But they haven't said that. And I highly doubt they ever will. We need to ask F1 to be better and do better. We need to keep doing that. Because when F1 is lagging behind most conventional sport, football, for example, whilst it has all of its pitfalls in actually having something tackling instances of racism, at least they're able to accept that there are those issues. The F1 kind of idea is not even suggesting that there is an issue. They're like, we're vaguely aware that there might be something slightly wrong with something, so we're going to say that we're going to do something nice and fancy without actually having to commit to it. It does make me a bit upset to say that I'm an F1 fan when I see that kind of stuff, but at the same time, it makes me applaud the likes of Lewis Hamilton, who are doing all they can within their current roles to help diversity, inclusion, and tackling the likes of discrimination in more arenas than just the sport. I mean, there are rumours saying that one of the reasons why the Mercedes contract stalled was because he wanted to commit to that diversity initiative that they've announced together. And he doesn't even only have that one with Mercedes, he has ones where he's working with Royal Academies. That is spectacular. F1 should look to do stuff like that, where it's actually something tangible. If it wants to say it's actually a force for change, if it wants to say it's actually a force for good. And that's really the only note I'm going to leave it on. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you around.